Like- Good evening, everybody. Welcome you all to the online faculty development program on impact of COVID-19 and managing personal finance during this period, organized by M.O.P Vaishnav College for Women. The resource persons for the day are Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murali and C.A. Divya Abhishek. Let's begin with an opening note from our principal, Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan.
Thank you very much for the address to the principal, ma'am. And we have Uttara ma'am with us now. Ma'am, you're on screen.
Yeah, yes,
You can switch off the video, ma'am. I'll share your
yes.
PPT now.
Yes. Welcome you all. This is Dr. Uttara, the Vice Principal, M.O.P Vaishnav College for Women. It is my proud privilege to welcome and introduce the resource person of today's program. Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murli, a chartered accountant, cost and management accountant, and certified information systems auditor, has many achievements to his credits. Achievement seems to be a very way of life for him. Being a top scorer and a rank holder in many of the professional exams, he has the honor of being the youngest elected secretary of the Southern India Regional Council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. An expert in direct taxation, international taxation, litigation and appeals, he has also expertise in valuations of businesses, due diligence and mergers and acquisitions. Dr. C.A. Abhishek Murli is currently the partner of Messrs. Victor Grace and Company, a leading CA firm. In fact, he is very passionate in mentoring startups and thus add on to the social capital of the country. He has been professionally advising various leading industries and high net worth individuals and professionals. Dr. C.A. Abhishek is a part of many committees, both in the ICAI New Delhi and in SIRC Chennai. He has progressed to be nominated as the chairperson of many committees relating to the capital markets and investor protection, just to name a few, and the list actually seems to be endless. Apart from all this, he has willingly shared his knowledge and acumen by authoring books and penning many articles. He has addressed more than 250 seminars, both technical and non-technical topics, in numerous corporate fora and university. We are truly honored to have with us such a dynamic, young, and multifaceted professional in our midst today. Thank you, Mr. Abhishek, for joining us
Thank you.
today. The panel today has been certainly enriched with the presence of C.A. Divya Abhishek, a practicing chartered accountant, currently the partner of Messrs. DSNR and Company, one of the top-notch CA firms. Again, a top scorer and a rank holder in both the CA and CS professional examinations, has developed a deep knowledge in audit, company law, cross-border transactions, and international taxation. In her days at Ernst& Young, where she worked after completing her CA, Divya has led delegations to leading MNCs and corporates on accounting standards and ethics. CA Divya has held many positions and has been nominated into several of the committees in SIRC and FICCI. The best part is her social consciousness. She is a keen social activist with a passionate professional focus on women empowerment and campaigns for the upliftment of the girl child. Also, as a part of the board of studies of many leading colleges, Ms. Divya has been ensuring that the benefit of her industry experience gets translated to the student community. We are indeed very happy to have you with us, Divya, in today's session on managing personal finance during and post the pandemic. You both are really setting couple goals, I must say. Wishing you all success, and over to Dr. Abhishek and Ms. Divya for the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Uttara ma'am, for a very, very lovely introduction. I really wish you could come around wherever I speak and introduce me like that. It made me look much better than anything that I have done. So thank you once again. I extend my serious thanks to the college for involving me as a speaker in this program. It's a matter of pride for me, especially M.O.P. Vaishnav College. I know is a very leading college as well, and many people that I know am associated with it have been students and products of this very, very prestigious college. So, without further ado, I'd like to proceed with the session that we have in hand. And as rightly said by both Principal Ma'am and Vice Principal Ma'am, the topic today is managing business and personal finance through this COVID period. As you all are aware, we are all facing an unprecedented lockdown situation. And even when the lockdown is lifted, slowly you can see the restrictions are slowly being lifted in this lockdown. And as that's happening, things are changing. But let us understand what is the impact of this COVID 19. Because when you drill it down to the detail and into its essence, while the lockdown may have been 45 days or 60 days, or as may be it in each particular state or each particular country, what's important to understand is the vaccine for this is at least a year away. So living with this COVID has to become a reality, and we have to learn how to do business, how to manage our personal finances despite the existence of COVID. By being through this lockdown, we have not eliminated COVID. So, unfortunately, we are all now facing the reality of what can be called a recession. And this recession is unprecedented. Now, recession is nothing new to us. We have always seen recession in the history of mankind. The economy has always faced a recession. Now, most recently, we can go through some instances. In 1989, we had the Japanese market crash. In 1999, we had the dot com boom and the dot com bust, which again crashed the entire economy. In 2001, you saw Enron, one of the world's biggest companies at the time, collapsed. Even the biggest audit firm at the time, Arthur Andersen, collapsed along with that, leading to a significant recession then. In 2008, the greatest recession since the Great Depression was seen at that time, which was the collapse of the Lehman Brothers and what was the subprime crisis. So we had a significant recession at the time. And then in 2011, we had something called a double dip recession. And finally, we are now in 2020, where we are staring at a recession because of this COVID 19. So now, recession is nothing new, right? Why did I say this recession that we are going to face now is unprecedented? The primary reason being, while all recessions that we have seen in the past, they have been isolated to certain geography or certain sectors. You take, for example, the 2008 recession, the subprime crisis recession. India was substantially protected from it. We were insulated from that recession. So that meant we did not feel the deep effects of the recession. Naturally, being a developing economy, we are going to feel the effects of anything that happens in the West or whatever happens in developed nations. But in terms of jobs, in terms of your day to day activities, it did not affect India. But unlike that, unlike the earlier recessions, this time in the COVID 19 crisis, what is unique is not only India is in a shutdown, but the entire world is in a shutdown. So no geography has been left unaffected due to this COVID. And not just that, all sectors, maybe barring healthcare and what they say essential goods, has been deeply affected by this. And as I said, being the vaccination is at least a year away, we need to learn to live with this infection, and we need to be brace ourselves for the effect of the recession is going to continue for some time till this entire COVID issue starts being phased out, which will only happen over a period of time. But till that happens, we have to learn to live with this. So during this sort of crisis, two things are very, very important: managing and understanding what is the impact of this economy on your business or on whatever your students that you're teaching. You'll be teaching them various subjects. What is the impact of all of this in those subjects, so that when you advise them, you can tell them this is the impact on your business. One. And the second most important thing, how to manage your personal finances through this period. Both are very, very important. One is, you know, what happens in the economy, and then how this, whatever is happening in the economy, whatever is happening to the businesses, how does it affect you and me, and how should we plan our finances through this period. So this entire PPT, we have split it into two parts. I'll be taking the first part, where overview of the impact on the economy and businesses, followed by the next speaker, CA Divya, who will be covering the impact on your personal finances and how you need to manage the same. So let me get started. Before we know what is the impact of the recession, let us first see where we were before we went into this recession. This lockdown came very, very suddenly in March. So what I have done is I have taken the consumption pattern of a general average individual during January 2020. On an average, a person was found to spend on these following categories that you see on your screen right now. So I've highlighted three particular categories. These three are going to be the most deeply affected sectors, and your deeply affected spending also will be seen in these areas. So, what are they? The first one is transport. Transport is going to be significantly affected. Now, first things first, even if the lockdown is lifted, even if restrictions are eased, even let's say assume by Monday, the state government assumes makes an announcement that we are easing up certain restrictions. But despite that, despite the 17th lockdown ending, what has been announced is flights will not travel, only for cargo and essential travel. Trains will also not be relaunched. IRCTC have announced that. And in fact, public transport also, there is a big debate whether buses should travel in such large numbers. And let us take ourselves, put ourselves in the shoes. How comfortable will you be, or how comfortable will I be taking a bus, sitting and sharing my seat along with 60 or 70 people, all packed next to each other? Many times we travel in trains and buses where we have no room to even stand. We are all literally hoping that it is the group and power of the people that is keeping us inside the train. The moment people leave, immediately even I'll come out automatically. I'll get pushed. That's how you've seen the Bombay suburban and all this. But how comfortable will you be taking that sort of travel in these situations? And COVID is unresolved. Even if you're sitting in a flight, you're sitting in a sealed atmosphere for 3 hours, 4 hours. International travel means 7, 8 hours. You're going to be sitting in the same flight, sharing the seat with somebody. If he coughs, if he sneezes, or if there's an action by him that may threaten you, naturally you're going to feel the infection can be spread very, very easily. So there is a fear element also. One is the practicality element, the second is a fear element. So because of this, transport sector is going to be significantly affected. What is an associated sector? When you talk about transport, the first thing that will come into your mind is tourism. And when is tourism the most powerful time, or when they do the most business in tourism? It's usually in the summer, that is the periods of April, May and June. And unfortunately for them, this entire COVID lockdown has come in the exact same period. Even if the lockdown is lifted, nobody will feel comfortable taking a tour. Just because you have 1 week time lockdown is lifted, you are not going to book a ticket and go to America, go to New York. You are not going to go to Italy. You will not go to China. Naturally, because there are so many elements, unexpected elements that could potentially put you at a risk. So the entire tourism sector is affected and transport sector is affected. The next important one is recreation and culture. Going to movies, going to cinema halls, going to plays, or even going for a IPL cricket match. Will you be comfortable sharing and watching a movie with 800 people, sharing the same screen, sitting next to each other? How comfortable you be going for an IPL match with 60,000 people around you? People sweating, shouting, screaming. So naturally, all of these areas are going to be the most deeply affected, and your spending also consequently will be affected here. The final one is restaurants and hotels. I think you can see that already, where people today they are not going out to restaurants, instead they are ordering through Swiggy or Zomato, or the restaurants themselves are delivering. So slowly you can see a pattern shift will emerge, where people will almost stop going to restaurants, or even if they go to restaurants, how much time will you spend there? Maybe earlier you could go with your family for a dinner, you'll spend 2 hours, 3 hours there and slowly have conversations. People used to do business over coffee, where they'll sit for 5, 6 hours in a coffee shop and they will talk business. All of that is going to completely be reduced now. So, unless it's absolutely essential, you are going to avoid going to a public place like this. So therefore, this is the overview of how we were spending before. And now you will see that going forward, this entire spending pattern or your consumption pattern is going to change. Now, through my presentation, I'm going to cover some critical concepts. Now, these are concepts which many of you are already teaching your students, or you are aware, and your entire how not only you but how the economy functions, or how generally people advise business should be done, is based on these concepts. And these concepts are critically undergoing a change because of this COVID issue and this COVID recession. So let us start with the first one, which is understanding what is cash flow and understanding what is profitability. Now, very famously, you may be aware that Adi Godrej, I think this was during the 2008 recession, where he said, you know, profit is vanity, sales is sanity, cash flow is reality. End of the day, no matter what, cash flow is the reality. So today, I may make a sale. You are all aware when you talk about your profit and loss account, you have something on the credit side, the right hand side, in the top right corner. By sales, you start off with that. And then finally, you work out, you put your expenses, you put your opening stock, closing stock, and you arrive at your profit. But you start off with that sales. Now, this sales, just because you make a sale, does not mean you're earning cash. The fundamental point is sale consists of something called cash sales. That is where I'm collecting money immediately. And substantially, most businesses do sales on a credit basis. I know Mr. X, I know Mr. Y. They've been my clients. So I tell them, you take a 30-day credit period. You pay me back after 30 days. I'm giving you the goods now. You pay it back to me after 30 days. You pay it back to me after 60 days. So that is the sort of relationship that I share, and I'm offering these credit terms to them. Now, in a situation of a recession, the way that you're giving these credit terms is going to undergo a change. What do I mean? I mean, if I'm selling to Reliance and Reliance says, I am facing a recession, Abhishek, give me an additional 60 days. I may say, take 60 days. ITC asks me for 60 days, I will give them 60 days. But if my small shop that I'm supplying my goods to, it is on the roadside, small shop, it is opposite my house, it is there in the roadside. I have known that person for a very long time. So I supply to him at a very, very beneficial terms. So he comes and tells me, Abhishek, recession has affected me very, very badly. I need 6 months' time. Now, liberally or by goodness of your heart, you may want to give 6 months, but you have to think it through whether that person will be able to survive 6 months. You take a Reliance or ITC, these are large businesses. Even if a depression happens, they don't have to worry. They don't have to worry. They'll still be able to do business, they'll be able to sustain. So I can feel protected by giving them extra days. But if I'm going to give a small business owner 6 months' time, 12 months' time, it is a big risk of the collection of the money. Not only that, I have also lost the goods that I've given to him. So it's a double whammy for you. So in a time of recession, you encourage cash sales. You have to encourage cash sales, because what we must all remember is we are in a liquidity crisis. In any recession, you have something called a liquidity crisis, where you will realize cash is king. So having money in your bank account having cash in hand is much more preferable than having various assets. That brings me to my very important point. You must avoid capital outflows. Let us take an example. In January, down your road, a builder he was starting construction of an apartments. That time you went and inquired, what is the cost? He says, if you book the apartment today, I will sell it to you at 10,000 per square feet. So you decide, okay, I'll wait. Then this entire recession hits. So today, if you go and ask that person, he may tell you, I will sell you that apartment. You make the payment today. I will sell it to you at 4,000 rupees per square feet. You think, wait a minute, you're selling it at 10,000. Now he's selling it at 4,000. I'm getting a 60% discount. I'll never get this discount before later. I've never got this discount before. It is impossible for me to imagine getting this discount later. Thanks to this recession, thanks to this lockdown, he's giving me this offer. I'm just going to pay quickly. But wait a minute, do not rush. Because remember, cash is king. What do I mean? In an optimistic scenario, the builder he'll complete building the apartments, let's say in 3 years or 5 years. 3 to 5 years is the time builders take these days. So he completes in 3 to 5 years. In that 3 to 5 years, hopefully he completes in time. First point. Second point, if he completes at all. Second point, the most important point, you would have taken a loan to buy this house. So you have to service the loan. You have to pay the interest on this loan. Not just that, for the house that you are living in, you have to pay rent. You're continuing to pay rent while you are paying EMI and no flat is ready. And finally, 3 to 5 years later, when that flat finally becomes ready, you have to go inspect it, take the possession, do the interiors of the flat. Then, if you want to let it out, you have to put an ad on paper, search through various parties, find the final tenant who is very good, and then lend it out to him. So for 5 years, you are having total outflows and you do not see any income. You cannot have any asset in hand. You cannot have any income from that asset also for a minimum period of 3 to 5 years. This is the reality of capital outflows. So generally, in times of recession, it is advised to avoid capital outflows because that several lakhs, maybe sometimes crores of rupees also you're spending on that house. If there is an emergency in the next 12 months, if a scenario arises where there's a hospital emergency or a medical emergency at home, or a situation arises where maybe there's a job affected through this COVID issue, maybe you're having a pay cut, maybe no bonus, so you need more funds in hand. That emergency is there, sudden cash emergency. It's a very pitiable situation where if you feel, oh no, I have purchased a house that I will not see the benefits of till 3 to 5 years. I should have not done that. So always remember, cash is king. Maybe 6 months later, if you want to buy that house, they will be selling it at 8,000 per square feet or 9,000 per square feet. It is worth it. It is worth the wait. It is worth the wait because at least the flat will be completed if it is completed at all. Plus, you would have had that money with you safely. It would have not got misused. It would not have gone for a purpose. So, any emergencies, you would have had the money at your disposal. So, avoid capital outflows unless you are sure that you have enough money to manage any sort of situation. Then, in that case, by all means, go ahead. But in a generally advisory situation, in a recession, it is advised that you avoid your capital outflows. The next is your working capital management. Now, you're all familiar. I'm sure most of you would have seen this diagram that you're seeing on the right hand side. You would have seen this diagram whenever you're teaching your students or when you were studying also. It's a very famous cycle called the working capital cycle. Now, the previous slide, all the examples that I gave, be it the credit sales, where Reliance or ITC has to come. Somebody has to come and say, give me more time, Abhishek. When I talked about cash sales, somebody has to come and say, I will pay you for that sale now. When I talk about your capital outflow for purchase of the apartment, that builder has to sell it for 4,000 square feet. So in every example, some outside party is involved. Working capital management is the only area where any business or any person can contain their expenses by themselves without any external inclusion. So you yourself can manage your expenses. What do I mean? Let us start with your inventory management. Any business, inventory is the lifeline. The goods is the lifeline. And normally you have enough goods to service the next few orders. So always minimum 10 orders, 12 orders, I will have goods to service this plus some additional buffer also. But when it comes to a recession, critically what we have to understand is let us take example again. I am a shoemaker. I manufacture shoes. Now, when I manufacture shoes, just like that capital outflow example that I gave, my vendors, my suppliers who give me leather, they will say, Abhishek, you buy leather worth 8 months. Normally, you buy only for 2 weeks. Why don't you buy leather for the next 8 months today? I will give you at 50% discount. Very tempting. Unlike capital outflow, here I am doing business of making shoes. So he is giving me a huge discount. My sale price remains the same. So I can make a huge profit. So that is the sort of mentality that I may have. And I decide, okay, let me buy it. Now, again, there is a big risk. Because why? I am buying 8 months worth stock now at a very discounted rate, but 8 months stock. I have to, I'll not have any place to store it because normally for next 2, 3 weeks only I will buy. So I have to take a warehouse, I have to take the godown, then I have to pay rent on that godown. Then I have to put security at that godown so that nobody comes and steals my leather. So I have to pay for the security. Then the leather can get damaged. There may be floods, there may be rains, there may be heavy winds. So my leather can get damaged in all of these situations. So I have to employ a person to take care of this leather, and I have to employ a person to purchase enough liquids. I have to pay for that liquids for the chemicals. I have to ensure that these chemicals are applied correctly on time and these goods don't get spoiled. And all in what? In hope that I'm making enough sales to sell those products. In a recessionary scenario, you and I ourselves, we can take ourselves as an example. Will we prefer to buy 2, 3 shoes, even if it is there at discount? Will you just simply buy shoes, or will you say, I have a pair of shoes, I'm happy with the shoes, I don't want to buy any new shoes till this gets damaged? So I will manage for the next 1.5, 2 years. I'll just manage with this shoe. I don't need to change my shoe. So unless your shoe tears or unless it is absolutely required, people will not come and buy shoes. It is not an essential product. So here, as a shoemaker, I have spent so much money without any income. So this is why there's a theory in a recessionary scenario. It is advised that you follow something called the just-in-time inventory management. And what do I mean by just-in-time? That means you will keep enough goods. I'll purchase only enough to service whatever orders I have. You may ask, what if I get a big order? Yes, there is a risk. When a big order comes, I just have to tell them, normally I will give you the shoes in 2 weeks' time. Instead, you give me an additional 2 weeks because I have to buy the products. So yes, your delivery time may get delayed in a just-in-time inventory management system, but I am protected. I am not spending a large amount and then waiting for the sales. Only after I get the sales am I spending for my purchases. So you have to follow a just-in-time inventory management system. The next most important thing, try to recover your old pending receivables. I have good relationship with various parties. So normally, Mr. X, I'm given him 60 days time. After 60 days, he tells me, Abhishek, we have been doing business 20 years. You give me an additional 30 days. I tell him, you take additional 30 days. Mr. Y also comes. We have been doing business for 20 years. Give me more time. Okay, you take another 90 days. So this is what every business does. It is common. But in times of recession, as I said, cash is king, liquidity crisis. Try to collect as much money as possible from your old customers where your long pending receivables are there. That brings me to the most critical point, especially where I think as faculties you can make a difference to the students, is tell them it is the creativity that comes into question in times of a recession. The more creative that you are, the more you can do business. It reminds me of a joke where this person, he has a poultry farm. He has a lot of hens and birds there. He's feeding them. Suddenly, this person comes from prevention of cruelty animals. So he comes in. He comes to check how the management is. So in checking, he says, "I think what are you feeding?" your your birds. Sir, I'm giving them rice, grains, all that I'm giving. No, no, you are underfeeding your birds. So I'm putting a penalty of 10,000 rupees. Then after 6 months, the same inspector comes there. Says, what are you feeding your birds? Says, sir, I'm giving them pista, badam, kesari, alva, all that I'm giving. No, no, you are overfeeding your birds. So I'm putting a penalty of 10,000. Then again, after 6 months, the same person comes to inspect. Just a moment. He says, how much, what are you feeding your birds? Then that person says, sir, actually, I am not feeding my birds anything. I give them daily bata of 100 rupees. They themselves go to the market, they themselves buy whatever they want and they come back. So I am not feeding anything, they are only managing themselves. It's on a lighter note, but the point is you have to learn to be creative. And generally, you find creative solutions like this come out only from young people. And why I'm saying you have to be creative is you have to try to recover as much money that you want and try to do as much business as you can. The prime example being one of my clients that I've been working with. And we have been advising most of our clients during this COVID time on how they need to be doing their business. And one client was a car dealer. We are discussing how he should survive. The question of survival itself has come to this person. So when we were discussing that, we came up with the strategy where the dealership said, I will make the car sale today. I'll make the car sale today. And if that buyer loses his job in the next 12 months, then I undertake to buy back the car from him that I have sold to him. Now, this is unprecedented. No car dealership you would have heard has given a promise that they will buy back the car if you lose your job. These are all scenarios out of their hands, but still they are taking a risk and they have said that I will sell you the car today. If you lose your jobs 12 months from this date, I will be able to buy back that car. I promise I will buy back from you. Now you may think it's a really silly decision, but for that car dealership to survive, he needs to make that sale today. He is saying when the economy recovers after 6 months, after 7 months, I'll be able to buy back comfortably. I'll make enough money. But for me, the next 3, 4 months, I need to make my sales. So this is the critical decision that some people are coming up with creative solutions to, administer. So creative solutions are going to become the norm. And I think you have to encourage all the students who are passing out of the college, who are studying there, to try and involve themselves in coming up with creative strategies to address the economic challenges that they are facing. Staff and HR management, another very, very important thing. What you're going to find is a lot of job roles are going to go extinct. They are going to go extinct in the next few months. I'll give you an example. Many businesses have door-to-door salesperson. What is their job? They'll take their bike, they'll go from door to door and meet all companies that are buying that product and they'll try to market it. They'll go for each district, they'll take their bike or they'll take a car, they'll go to each district and they'll come back. And these are marketing persons. How relevant is this marketing person today? Can you afford to pay a salary to a person in a situation where you're not even allowed to go to the road, let alone go door to door and go from each district to district? That for the next few months is not even imaginable. And that is the scenario we are living in. So that entire job role of the door to door marketing person has gone defunct. So all of a sudden, because of something hitting your economy, the job role of a person itself is completely lost. See, every business have to reevaluate what are the various job roles, and you're going to find outsourcing becomes a new model. People are going to start outsourcing activity. I'll give you an example. Britannia have a very huge factory in Ambattur. Many of you may know this, a massive factory in Ambattur. But what many of you don't know is that nobody is there in factory. Biscuits are not being manufactured there. They only have a front office team which does all the accounts and planning and the top management, and an R&D team. They don't manufacture their biscuits there. They subcontract it to outsiders who manufacture the biscuits and send it back for quality checking alone. This is not because of COVID. They have been following this strategy for the last 15, 20 years. They said, when I was speaking to them, they said, Abhishek, we believe we are saving costs, plus we are able to ensure better quality also. We don't have to deal with labor unions, we don't have to deal with lockdowns, we don't have to deal with electricity issues, etc. We give the guidelines, we give the secret recipe, and we select specific persons who do the product, and we'll check the quality. It works out much more better beneficial for us, and they are also incentivized to produce more and maintain their quality. So this is a model followed by one of the biggest companies in India. Already they've been following it for so many years, and they've been very successful doing it. You're going to increasingly see this model distilled to almost all enterprises. One of the examples is the same marketing person who you had employed before, you were giving a salary for. You can give him a job as a consultant, that is, as a freelancer. You say, for every sale that you make, I will give you 25% commission. 25% commission is a big amount, and most likely he'll be able to earn more by commissions than as a salary. But he is bringing that sale. He is incentivized to bring a sale. Then only he will earn his money. So therefore, he is bringing 100. So paying 25 does not matter for you because you're earning 100 because of that 25. So 75 rupees is beneficial to you. So it is worth it. It is worth it for you. It is also incentivizing his performance. So these are new models that will start coming out because of the recession, and people have to start planning for it. So earlier, and marketing is one of the most preferred areas for students passing out of college. So they'll have to be aware that the entire model has changed now. The way they have to approach it has changed. We'll also be covering expenses management, which will be done by the following speaker, say Divya Abhishek, and the compliance government measures. And before I touch upon what are the positives, I wanted to touch two new areas which I think will be critical for colleges. One is impact on education. How is education going to change? As Uttara ma'am, the vice principal, she rightly said, both myself and Divya were on boards of many colleges and we are advising them. And one of the critical things that we have been advising and we have been spearheading this is how to transition and manage a digital situation or this COVID situation. None of us have been to classrooms in a while now, at least minimum 2.5 to 3 months. We have not been going, and maybe going forward also, there could be some more time before we get back into a physical classroom. What you're going to see is transition to digital, because students still have to get educated. As teachers, we still have a responsibility to society. So therefore, how is this COVID going to impact education? The first one that you're going to see, much like this webinar, these sort of webinars were uncommon before. Suddenly today, I myself have addressed around 25 colleges, and this webinar has become the norm now. It has become the norm, and it's going to become the norm for students also going forward. So there is going to be a transition to digital modes of education, recorded classes, online classes, maybe Zoom platform or other platforms, and even mobile learning, learning through using apps on your phone. The curriculum also needs to be innovated and changed for this purpose. We cannot have the same curriculum. If you say come to the science lab and do experiments, nobody is going to have a science lab at home. So how are you going to teach them? You have to come up with the new creative options, and there are going to be disruptions in learning. So we have to ensure that this disruption is not felt by the students. So come up with new opportunities for them, new ways of teaching them. And we have been telling this to all colleges, so I have no qualms in advising you also. Come up with new certification courses, new skill development courses, because when the students are now passing out of the college, the number of jobs that they are going to have access to is going to reduce, because it's a recessionary scenario. The job market will be hit. So therefore, as colleges, we need to gear them up with new skills. For example, I might teach them how to develop a website, how to do marketing online using Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat, etc. How to market your products using these online platforms, how to maybe develop websites, how to develop an online presence for your whoever your prospective job seekers. For all of them, what they are doing by learning these new skills, by gearing them up, these new certification courses, you are making them add value to whoever is employing them. So when the employer asks a question, what else can you do? How do you have any more questions? They can say, I am an expert in developing a website. I'm an expert in marketing products online. So these are skills that maybe a normal BCom student or an MBA student may not have had. But because you're teaching them through these certification courses or skill development courses, they have become a more valuable asset to a person who is recruiting them. So this is the way that the students can also add value, and it's also an opportunity for educational institutions to maybe earn money on the side. Your regular college is going to happen, but by having these courses you are also keeping creating a new earning avenue for yourselves, and also providing the students an opportunity to be a better asset to their employers. So the consequential impact on the students also can be seen, where the students, they must attend these online classes. You can take attendance through this. Look at opportunities because of the COVID impact, how new opportunities are going to form, how online opportunities are suddenly going to come to the forefront, and also planning your placement strategies. I think, as I said, outsourcing is going to become a new reality, and students have to also be ready for that. So just because they are getting a job offer where they say you will be put on the roles as a consultant, they should not reject it. They need to see everything, overall perspective. Is it a good company? Is it a good option? Is it a good opportunity? Will I not get this sort of opportunity if I skip it? So these are the realities, and I think as faculties, as teachers, we need to be advising them on this. And finally, before I hand over to CA Divya, I want to touch upon a few positives. It may have been looking like we have been talking only about negatives so far, but what we must remember is, as India, we are very, very blessed with something called the demographic dividend. They have all repeatedly heard this: highest population in the world, most number of people in the world. This was always, had a negative connotation whenever people talked about India with the high population. But WHO have said this, IMF have said this, various financial leading authorities globally have said this, where the only two economies in globally developing economies that are expected to have positive growth are India and China. And luckily, we do not have to look outside. We don't have to export to make money. We have enough people in India to service the demand in India. Unlike, let's say, a Japan or a Korea or a Singapore, all developed nations. But if they're not able to export, their entire economy will collapse. Unlike that in India, we have that demand in India itself. So I'm very sure that overall, after this COVID situation settles down, maybe the 6 months or maybe 12 months, but once it settles down, you will see that there'll be so much beneficial impact to all the people. The economy will be able to recover, and our spirit as Indians will truly be reflected. With this, I'll come to a conclusion of my session. I now hand it over to CA Divya to take over for personal finance. Thank you. Over to Divya.
A very good evening to one and all. So, as you're all aware, we're living in unprecedented times. This is something, it's been a shock to the world. We have not seen something of this magnitude before. In fact, the IMF chief Geeta Gopinath calls this the Great Lockdown. He ties this in with the Great Depression that happened in the 1930s. And over 100 countries have already approached the IMF asking for funding. Not only that, they estimate a $9 trillion loss to the global economy because of what is happening. Now, having heard and understood about the repercussions of this virus, that this pandemic, we are bound to worry what is the effect of it for us as individuals sitting out of our homes and following all this news. So, I am here today to take you through the steps you need to take to in order to insulate yourself to ensure that the damage for your personal finances is at the minimal because of what is happening in the world. The first step would be for you to draw up an emergency budget. Now, budget is something that all of us have heard of. We have seen it implemented in various companies. But how many of us are implementing this at an individual level? At the time of crisis, it is very critical for you to draw up your budget. The timeline with which you need to draw this up should be for a minimum period of 6 to 12 months. Even though the lockdown might be released after this month, you are still going to face the repercussions of this virus in your daily life. So, the first stage would be for you to estimate the income that you're going to be earning. When I say income, what I mean is the actual money that is going to hit your bank account on a month on month basis and not what you're expected to get. You have to factor in that if the situation continues, you might have a potential cut in your income in your salary that you receive, or your promotion or your increment. The next stage would be to identify your essential and non essential expense. We all hear about these jargons of essential, non essential. How I would like to classify this as expenses for life and lifestyle. What you need to spend on your life is something you cannot compromise on. It has to be ongoing. It could be in the form of food, groceries, your monthly rent, your taxes. When you factor in the grocery shopping, I'm sure the price of the commodities that you bought in March has substantially increased, be it the price of tomatoes or onions. So ensure you factor in the inflation when you come up with this budgeted expense. The next one would be your non essential expenses. Now, these are expenses that you should stave off. Ensure you do not spend. Say you've been toying with the idea of buying a Samsung phone or an Apple phone for the longest time. You're not happy with your existing phone. My advice to you would be do not buy any phone. Don't venture into it. Be it an air conditioner, car, anything that you would need which you have been wanting to buy for the next 12 months, stave off it. It is not worth spending on items which are luxury, branded items, not at these times. These are very, very critical times where you need to save every penny you have. After making this budget, if you feel you have excess funds over and above your minimal expenditure, then you can consider investing this. But when you do invest, ensure it is highly liquid. As Abhishek has said, cash is king during these torrid times. So ensure that if you have a surplus, you are investing it in a liquid fund. Say you have a deficit where your expenses, the bare minimal expenses, are far higher than the income that you spend. Now, this is the time for you to understand how you're going to mobilize these funds. Before jumping into getting a loan from the bank, however tempting the interest rate, reduction, anything, I would suggest look into your emergency savings. Take a dip into it. It is okay. You will be able to replenish that back after these times. If your emergency savings is also used up and you still need more funds, then try to mobilize it between close friends and family. I'm sure you will have a lot of well wishers who are going to help you tide through these times. After you finish this exercise, there are two critical concepts that you need to see. One would be your revenue maximization, the other would be your necessary expense outflow. In the area of revenue maximization, try and identify whether you can earn alternate revenue. Now, we know that most of us are working from home, which means we have substantial time on our hands since we are not going to be moving from one place to another. Having had that time, it's important for you to reflect and reinvent. Try to be creative. Automobile giants like Mahindra is now manufacturing ventilators. They used to do cars. It's a completely different field for them. So when the big organizations, MNCs, are able to adapt due to these changing times, it's important for us to make use of our creative skills. What you have will be a learning for somebody else in some other part of the world. There's going to be no geography in terms of the digital era we're getting into. The next one would be aware of the critical relief measures provided by the government. You have to be extremely proactive. While there are wonderful measures that have been provided by the government, these are not automatic. You're not going to get an automatic credit into your account. You have to act on it. So it's critical you understand what these measures are going to be and how you're going to act on it. I will be covering some measures which will be useful to you in the course of my presentation. Like I already said, consider tapping into your emergency savings. It is far better than borrowing or taking a loan and servicing the interest charges from that loan. You will be using a lot of these payment partners like Paytm, PayPal, Google Pay. Because there's a lot of digital era and you need to make payments, you're going to avoid face to face contacts. Now, during such times, try and understand what are the benefits. If you use your HDFC card or your ICICI card, there are some cashback opportunities. In fact, Google Pay also has this scratch card. However small the amount is, try to mobilize your funds through that. It is important for us to be aware and act on. Then comes your necessary outflow. The first and most important point would be these auto debits. They're the silent killers into your bank account. When we were doing well, when income was assured, when expenses were also on par, we would have signed up for these SIP payments, monthly SIPs, 1,000 rupees per month that goes into your account. Or we would have signed up for various memberships, small payments like buying music, lot of things that'll be an automatic debit into your account. This is a good time for you to understand what these payments are. If some memberships you're not going to use, if SIPs you want to put on hold, please go ahead. It's important, irrespective of the amount, you will be making a benefit from this. Do not ignore your credit card payments. Now, this is another thing that there's a lot of confusion around this. We hear that the RBI has introduced a moratorium on credit card payments where you can avoid paying for the 3 months. This understanding is incorrect. What is technically happening is by you not paying it, the interest on the credit card is still building up, which is a high amount. So, if you have the funds for it, if you have factored this into it, please make the payment immediately. Do not push it to another date. Rental expenses is something we cannot ignore, because what is going to be an expense for you is going to be an income for the landlord. So it might not be possible for you to say, please let me not pay it. So since you have to service this payment, what you can do is at the start of your lease, you'd have made a security deposit. It'll be a higher amount than your monthly rent. Talk to your landlord. See if there's a possibility for him to appropriate some portion of the security deposit as a rent. So by doing this, your monthly rent expense you can save for some time. These times have made us aware that health is wealth, which also brings me to the next point of health insurance. It's extremely critical that you understand what your insurance covers. If you have already taken an insurance, this will be a good time for you to know who all is covered. Is your family insulated? Because this is the last you want to be spending on hospital costs and other charges. If you have not taken an insurance, explore. There are a lot of COVID insurance schemes. Understand if the general insurance that you have taken covers COVID, it will be worth the effort. Not only you're going to be saving expense for the future, but this expense that you spend on insurance is also going to be tax deductible. Now, this is something that's happening, in fact, with what has happened in the last week with Franklin Templeton. We find that a lot of investors are panic selling. There's a lot of pandemonium in the market. You're very scared. But I want to bring to light that there's a difference between a paper loss and a real loss. When you're just incurring a loss on screen by holding on to your investment, it is going to be a paper loss. The moment you hit the sell button, it crystallizes into an actual loss. What you have to remember is the market has gone through many corrections over these years because of the various depressions that have happened. But it has always gone to an upward swing. By holding on to your investments, because when you make a fundamentally sound strategy of investing in the beginning and you're aware of your diversified portfolio, you can be confident to hold on to your investment, and then you can redeem it at a later date. So long as you do that, there's no panic selling that is happening, and your investment is also intact. The government of India has also provided a lot of relief measures to help people tide this storm. In fact, it's also been appreciated world over for the quick measure of introducing the early lockdown for giving a stimulus. So let me highlight some that will be applicable for everybody. The biggest reform would be in the form of Provident Fund. The government has allowed anybody to withdraw 3 months' worth wage or 75% of your total accumulated fund, whichever is lower. This has been highly utilized by many people. More than 35,000 people per day are withdrawing from their Provident Fund because this is an emergency saving fund that they're dipping into due to their low income. Over 2,000 crores has already been withdrawn so far. So if you feel that after you finish your first budgeting that you might have a deficit, you can explore doing this. And what is important is this is an online forum where you can take your withdrawal. So I'm sure this will be useful for you to know. The other reforms will be for the companies in the form of the government contributing their provident fund rate. The ESI rate has been reduced. They've also infused liquidity by doing the Jan Dhan Yojana account, where they provide both grains and ex gratia. Even if you are not going to benefit from it, if you know somebody who will, it is important you make them aware of these targeted measures that the government has taken, even for the Manrega workers and senior citizens. The other stimulus that has been provided by the government is in the form of a tax refund for anybody who's owed less than 5 lakhs as refund from the government. The government has given a blanket provision for them to release it. From personal experience, over 200 of my clients have already gotten this refund into their account without any questions asked. So, if you are someone who's owed a refund in income tax from the government, this is a good time for you to check if that refund has been credited, and if not, for you to consult and ensure you get this. There are also other measures provided like the extension of the return filing date, the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, the GST returns, and for companies in the form of Companies Fresh Start scheme. The RBI, the Apex Bank of India, and the lender of last resort, has also acted quickly for during these times. They provided this moratorium of 3 months for all term loans taken from banks and NBFCs. By all term loans, I mean any term loan with a fixed period of repayment, be it your home loans, your education loans, auto loans. Even credit card payments are covered. Now, typically, what you need to understand in this is, say if you have taken a loan for a period of 12 months, it's been extended to 15 months. I repeat, it's extended. They are not waiving your repayment. You're only allowed a leeway of not paying for the next 3 months. But what is important to remember is during this time of non-payment, your interest is still building up. So if you're someone who has the funds, who has factored this into your planning, I urge you to repay it. If you feel you need to save and you have multiple loans, then understand each loan portfolio. For a loan that has a lower interest rate, you can opt for this moratorium. Also, this moratorium is not automatic. This targeted relief is you have to exercise it. So get in touch with your bankers, understand what you need to do after you understand the interest implication on this. The RBI has also refinanced of rupees 50,000 crores to NBFCs. This is not only for the NBFCs, but it's also a message to the economy that the government has money. Do not panic, do not redeem. There is fund flow liquidity into the market. This liquidity injection is worthwhile. There are also interest rate reductions which the RBI has given. So, having said all of that, we are in very difficult times which we have not seen before. But in every diverse, there is an opportunity. So, this is the time for you to look inwards. There's a shift towards localization. There's a complete digital push to the economy. So, go forward. Ensure you rethink and revitalize what you need to do. As I say again, cash is king. It's important for you to be highly liquid during this time and stay home and stay safe. I once again thank M.O.P for giving us this opportunity. We'll be happy to take questions and thank you. Thank you so much. We already yeah.
I need. One second. I'll just add Uttara ma'am first.
Yeah.
Yes, Uttara ma'am, you're on screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I have a few questions, but before that, I would like to request the participants to put on their questions into the comments box so that it can be taken over by the resource persons once I'm done. So, Abhishek and Divya, that was a wonderful presentation. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, how do we leverage technology, especially in managing our finance personal finance, that is. I'm sure, there are so many AI powered tools that are available, like, say, for instance, a spending analyzer tool or an investment analysis tool. What is your take on that? How do you think it's really worth it?
Yeah. So in terms of leveraging technology, I think before you make that spend on technology, if you do the budgeting that I had highlighted earlier, it will help you, and it'll always be a cost-effective way, to save your costs. So ensure that you do the budget, and if you feel there's a lot more expenses and you're not able to keep track, then you can explore a lot of technology that's there online. In fact, a lot of softwares give you a free trial run, so I'd urge you to first do the trial run, see if that is working for you, and then you can do an investment in it. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think fintech is the way to go?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of digital push because of COVID, so definitely that's the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, another question that I have is more of an observation. You so rightly put it that as faculty members, it is our inherent duty to guide our students to use their time effectively, especially in such situations. Do you suggest any courses or any areas of self improvement, especially in managing personal finance, which could both empower them and also take it up as a career opportunity, also probably?
Yeah, that's a good question, ma'am. And definitely, I think just ties in again with the previous question that C. Divya had said, which is there is going to be a digital push. And I think many of our curriculum syllabus is not geared up for the digital. We are still back. We have not thought that digital is essential. We've always thought digital is additional, but today what you're going to find is digital is going to become essential. So in all of the courses or certification courses or in skill development programs, we have to find a way to integrate courses where we teach them how to add value digitally, marketing digitally now, and maybe even
Correct.
developing a website. Those are two examples I did in my program. But things like this have to be thought through specifically to whatever sort of students that you're having. I think each college will have different type of students, so there has to be a planned approach for each particular college. That would be my advice. But definitely move to digital is a reality today.
Great. Okay, Abhishek, thank you so much, Divya and Abhishek. I leave it to the floor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will take some of the questions that have
I
come.
think
I
there's
will
Yeah,
flash it on the
yes,
screen.
yeah.
Okay, for
sure.
example, Sandhya Kadiru has asked,
Please
please tell
tell us.
us if we should continue SIP in equity mutual funds.
So, as I said earlier, analyze what all SIPs you're doing, and if you feel you do have the funds for it, it's never a wrong time to put it in SIP in equity mutual funds, because there will be an upswing eventually. So, continue doing it if you feel you're uh, planned and you have enough funds for it.
Next question, Shamala Krishnamurthy.
People to take it up.
Yeah, as Divya covered in the moratorium session, I think it's very important that you speak to your bank to understand the impact of the moratorium. Because even though the period of the moratorium is extended, for example, I had a loan, I have to repay in 12 months, moratorium of 3 months, I can repay in 15 months. So it might seem people might say that, okay, every loan is naturally beneficial. Why would you say, think about taking the moratorium? The logic is your interest is still payable on that loan. Your interest has not been waived. So you're going to be paying interest on an additional 3 months because of taking this moratorium. So it may not be that beneficial to you. Now, why we must understand. So I saw another question which was there where they said that why moratorium at all if it's going to be so complex and it does not have any benefit. The logic is I am I am actually putting a collateral. If I'm taking a loan, I'm putting my house as a collateral. I'm putting my goods as a collateral. Something I'm putting as collateral for taking that loan. Now, by defaulting on it, if I don't pay in time because of this COVID issue, 3 months I have not been able to go to my office, I have not been able to collect, so I have not been able to repay. Then the bank has the right to seize my asset. They can put it for auction. They could have sold it by now because I defaulted. This entire moratorium is to ensure that that risk is not there, so that whatever I put as collateral or whatever I have promised in the terms of my agreement, I do not lose the benefit of that or lose that asset itself in the process. Jogan Joseph.
Investor confidence has become very low given the recent Franklin Templeton closures and also low bank deposit rates. Yes, sir, that's rightly said. There are a lot of emotional buying and selling that's happening in the market now. But what's important is in this specific case, it was on low, high risk debt funds. So it is a good time for you to analyze your portfolio, see if it's well balanced and diversified. Not only that, you also have regulatory authorities. For example, the SEBI is acting on what has happened in terms of the MF closure, and within a period of next 2 to 3 years, they will be repaying to the extent of their assets that they recover. So while that is a correct point, it is a good time for you to understand how your portfolio is looking at the moment and also be highly liquid since cash is going to be the king for the next year.
And I think when it comes to investor confidence, the RBI, after this Franklin Templeton issue, they infused some more funds so that debt fund companies, they'll have enough money to reinvest. So I think there is a buffer. I think Franklin Templeton may be an exception rather than the norm, and you will find that not too many will happen. Definitely, economy is under some pressure, but I think the government have been doing enough to allay the fears and try to protect the investors as much as possible. Even the Yes Bank scenario, how they very quickly acted on it to ensure that the investors are not affected, and people who put their money, fixed deposits, etc., they've got their money back now. And I think that goes to the credit that they're on top of things. Hey, is it advisable to invest in gold, or what will be the future of already invested gold? I think gold, generally what you will see is the stock market is not doing well. Gold will be doing very well. So gold is a tangible asset. It's a long-term asset where you have seen historically, gold as prices have always gone up in India because our culturally, I think there is a attraction to gold. So gold is always going to be going up in terms of long term. But that's the key thing. It is always long term. If you're going to buy gold as a, so you take, it's an investment decision and you want to buy gold, it's very likely that you're going to lock in your funds. And as I told you, liquidity is very important in times of crisis and times of recession, etc. Gold may not be as liquid as, let's say, a stock or a fixed deposit, or even a RD or something like that. So you have to evaluate in your scenario whether you think gold is a worthwhile investment. If you have the buffer and you think that liquidity is not required from you, I think it's a good time to invest in gold.
Can you suggest some innovative steps that can be taken to cut costs for a salaried person and also to be able to allocate a little for liquid investment? So I think I had covered this, Vaishnavi, in my presentation. It's a good time for you to understand what is going to be your essential expense and what is not going to be essential. So anything other than essential, completely stave off it. Don't spend. It's a good time for you to have it as liquid funds and to save that money that you have.
GDP production is bad and reserves improving due to favorable crude prices. What will be the best index for a quality of Indian economy? Um, I think this is definitely something which is hard to tell at the moment, more because we don't know what is the outside end of this COVID crisis. Because there's a lot of contingency that the vaccination has to be developed, and how it will be marketed, whether it will be easy to spread to everybody, and it be available at a reasonable cost. So many questions are there. But I think the comfort that we can take is the best minds in the world are all working on this simultaneously at the same time. So I think every economy is waiting on this. And what's important is a lot of people are expecting a hockey stick sort of recovery, because everybody is affected right now. All businesses globally are all in a down. It's a sharp fall. If you have a chart where you're doing a graph, you'll find that there's a sharp fall. But what is expected, and once things start picking up, once the economy picks up, there'll be a sharp recovery also. So maybe the crude prices, definitely, I hope this is a time where the government will be accumulating at this sort of low rate that the prices are available. But that alone is not going to change the economy. But I think we are on a good path if things are continuing as it is.
How long will it take for the Indian economy to revive after COVID? So, Deepa, I think this is something world over everyone is grappling with. It completely depends on when vaccines are found or what the new normal is going to be. Having said that, India is at an advantage because we look into localization. We are geared up for manufacturing, and we hear that a lot of companies are moving out of China, and India is a preferred investment place. So we will revive soon, hopefully.
What about mutual fund investment? Do you want to take this?
So again, it's a very personal call that you need to take, and it also depends on whether you're risk averse, or if you have age on your hand, then you can go ahead for a risky investment. It's completely personalized. So while we hear when everybody is selling, it's a good time to buy. I think during this period of crisis, it's important for you to assess whether you would need that fund or whether you're okay to invest it. So this has to be taken based on an individual call.
You think guaranteed return schemes will be more attractive as compared to speculative markets? Definitely, I think that goes without saying, because if I have to uh, put in something where it is market driven, unless I'm a person who has done my research and really thought through that investment, I may not be comfortable going through with it. I'd rather put in a fixed deposit or a PPF where I have a guaranteed interest rate. But of course, you must also think of the other alternative where liquidity is important. Your liquidity is also important. That may not be available in a fixed deposit. So, like Devya said, it has to be a personal call. As long as you are sure that it is a good investment, I think you can go ahead with it. PPF and SC have come now. You suggest that it's good to continue investing. Yeah, definitely. I think PPF is still a very good investment. It's tax-free interest, and you get a Chapter 6A deduction up to 1,50,000, and year on year you can build the investment. And imagine for 20 years if you are investing in that, 20 years of tax-free interest will be a pretty huge amount if you're putting 1,50,000 every year. So I think PPF is still a good scheme. Yeah, the rates have been coming year on year. I've been noticing where the interest rates have been dropping. Maybe they will increase it again. I think there has to be a push for people to start saving again. So maybe we will find that happening after a few years.
Yeah.
Let's see if there are any more questions.
How do we take the digital platform of teaching and learning to first generation learners who may not be that tech savvy and for whom it will be nice? So this is something that we need to learn to adapt to. Having said that, a lot of teaching and learning can happen over anyone's mobile phone. And in this era of where a lot of people have smartphones, I think you can tune in through that. The apps that are also being developed are quite user friendly. So this hopefully won't be that difficult for the first generation as well.
And I agree with Divya here, because everybody from my maid to everyone is using a smartphone now, and it's very easy to use. You get it in whatever vernacular, whether you're comfortable in Hindi, you're comfortable in Tamil, you have languages for that. So I think voice recording, so many things are beneficial in terms of these smartphones. So future is there. I think we have to look at as an educational institution trying to educate people through that. Initially, there may be challenges. It may be very silly to talk to a screen as opposed to talking to students, but we have to learn to start moving towards that because everybody is gearing for that. There's liquidity crunch at present. Collecting overdue payment is a difficult task. Uh,
Yes. So I think specific to the MSME sector, there are some reforms that the government has introduced. There's this TREAD scheme where it's an online platform and you register your MSME. They're doing a factoring where when you make a sale, the government will undertake to pay you, and then it is for them to recover. So it's important you're aware of the relief that the government is providing in the MSME sector, and we're also expecting more to come. So hopefully that will help you tide over the crisis.
we'll take the last question because I think we're running out of time. Let's take the last questions.
And for anyone who's requesting for the presentation, I think you can take our email IDs and send us an email, and we'd be happy to share it with you. I will type our email ID in the comments. Okay. Do you think it's the
Do you think it's the right time to invest in quality stocks at a reduced price? Uh, I I've consciously avoided talking about the stock market and advices because of that. I don't think it's the uh, I don't think it's the right thing to do, necessarily the right advice to share. But I just go by what Warren Buffett says: invest when the market is doing very badly, and when the market is doing great, you should sell. And I think that's a good advice to take. The challenge is always finding out when the market has bottomed out, if it has bottomed out at all. So, for example, many of my clients, when the market went from 44,000 to 40,000, they started buying heavily, saying that it's come down by 4,000 points. But unfortunately for them, it went down all the way to 27,000, the market. Okay, now it's recovered a little bit, but at 27,000 from 40,000, even though it's at 31,000 or 32,000 today, it's still a loss for them by 8,000 rupees, which is a big amount. So the challenge is always finding out when it has bottomed out. And when it comes to COVID, as I said, we don't know the outer date. We are hoping that it is only 1 year. So I leave it to each person to take a call, because the better way you invest is doing value investing is good, but track the right shares, track the history of the shares. So if they're good companies and maybe blue chip stocks which are at good prices available right now, I think it's a good decision to buy. I think we should wrap up with this. The
Yes,
organizers, M.O.P College, have given
yes.
us in a private chat saying that we should wrap up. So over to you, Uttara ma'am.
Yes, yes. Uh, I guess it's time to say thank you. A huge thanks to CA Abhishek and CA Divya for the truly insightful session. The lockdown, though, has brought in a sense of panic. I must say it has really taught us a lot of things. Most importantly, how to marshal our limited resources available. That way, the session definitely helped us to understand the nuances of how to plan and manage our finance in situations like these, and to take a leaf or two out of from this experience and make it a way of life post pandemic too. A big thanks to our principal, Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan, for mooting the entire session, and to our secretary, Shri Manoj Kumar Santhalia, for all his support. A big thanks to all the participants who are faculty members. Please note you will find a Google Form link in the comments section. Please fill it up and submit it by 6 p.m. today. We will be sending the e-certificates by the end of the next week to your respective email IDs. Thank you, one and all. I repeat, participants who are faculty members, please note you will find a Google Form link in the comments section below. Fill it up and submit it by 6 p.m. today. We will be sending the e-certificates by the end of next week to your respective email IDs. Thank you, one and all, for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.